Good morning, guys. Look at this. Another beautiful morning. The green grass is absolutely popping. But what we have in this box is hopefully just as popping as the vibrant green grass. Now, what we have in here is the TYR Valkyrie Speedworks. This is TYR's plated training shoe. And TYR is a brand that I wasn't too familiar with until a few months ago. And when I did their first shoe on the channel, I actually thought the brand was called TYR, and you guys ever so kindly corrected me. So it's TYR. They are named after some sort of a Norse god. Now, the shoe in the box, the Speedworks, is meant to go head to head with all these guys that we got sitting at the foot of the box here. So main competitor is going to be the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. The Speed 3 was one of my favorite shoes. I probably got to bring it out here. After we rip open the box, I'll do that. Speed 4 was okay for me, but it keeps much of the formula intact from the Speed 3. So if you like that bouncy power run PB, that's what you're going to be getting here. Boston 12, my all-time favorite plated training shoe. This guy has a beautiful midsole combination here with a little bit of a firmer foam on the bottom and then this super bouncy foam on the top. Light Strike Pro. Puma Deviate Nitro 2. This guy's a little bit more of a daily trainer combined with a speed training shoe. So a lot of people, a lot of runners out there, my guy Curiosities, you guys use it for your everyday miles. It's super comfortable foam underfoot with this nice Nitro Elite here, some sort of a supercritical, I believe, maybe a supercritical PEBA, nice and bouncy here. It's got a little bit of a narrow toe box, which is one of the things that the TYR is supposed to be correcting. It's supposed to have a little bit of a wider toe box. And then last down here in my plated training shoe lineup, we got the New Balance SC Trainer V2. This is one of the best shoes out there for cruising over long miles, for long runs. The plate adds just a little bit of fun and snap so that the foam isn't too mushy, because this is a very soft compound with this fuel cell here. And so if you see how I've lined them up here, these two are the fast ones. These two are more for daily training, more for everyday miles. The TYR is really designed to go head to head with these two down here, which are the top fast speed training shoes with plates on the market. So I'm excited to see where this one lines up. We're gonna rip it out of the box and then put it through some serious paces. Let's get into it. Boom. All right. Breaking open these Speedworks box here. Wow, I got some knife malfunctions this morning. But the reason I'm so excited about this was because the first shoe that I tested, the Valkyrie Carbon, was extremely competitive with some of the other race day shoes on the market. And it is really hard to make a good performance running shoe. And TYR did it with their first racing shoe. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this guy. This is upside down. Oops. Let's get this out of here. Bang. Look at that. Their branding is just super clean, man. Black on black. We got the murdered out box. Look how that is just shining in the sunlight here. And then I love their motto too. Always in front. And it can mean you can be always in front of the back of the pack. You can be always in front of the middle of the pack. You just got to be in front of your demons. That's the most important thing. All right. Enough yapping. Let us guess the thing open. Let's see what colorway. Again, always in front. I hope we got the white on white. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah, baby. That is clean, man. Look at that. All right, so I've just grabbed the Valkyrie Elite Carbon here in my other hand, and you can see they've kept the design language very similar across these two. It seems like the Valkyrie Elite Carbon, the racing shoe, might have a little bit more flair, a little bit more gravitas. You can see they got this overlay on the upper here. They got the laces with these little nubs. It just seems overall like there's a bit more panache with this shoe. They stripped it back a tiny bit for the Speedworks here, but extremely clean looking. The design language on these TYR shoes are absolutely fire, man. This is a good looking shoe, especially compared to some of the other shoes on the market. I'm just going to grab the Boston 12 here. I wouldn't be rocking the Boston 12 around town. And it's also not a shoe designed for you to be rocking it around town, right? It's got all these performance touches. The TYR is a shoe that's designed to have a little bit more of a normal sneaker feel. You can see on the bottom, they have this flat, very flat geometry all the way up to the forefoot. That's the same thing that we saw in the racing shoe here. And then you got this nice aggressive rocker right up in the front. So same thing on the Speedworks here, same exact geometry, nice and flat from the heel all the way up to the metatarsals. Just kidding, I don't know what the metatarsals are, but it's nice and flat right up here to the ball of your foot, and then it curves up aggressively here. And with that, we do have the same exact midsole foam as in the Valkyrie Elite, which is a beaded PEBA. And this is also going to be extremely similar to the Power Run PB that Saucony has in their shoes. And so I actually think they've sourced this from the same place. So if you like that Power Run PB that was in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 and Pro 3, you're going to be getting the same ride here. And this shoe, it feels, or the last shoe, the foam felt more similar to the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 foam than the Speed 4 does. And I'm not sure if they changed the formula of Saucony from the Speed 3 to the Speed 4, but it seems like whatever TYR has sourced from Arkema, whatever blend they got in here, is the same thing that Saucony had before. So if you like that feel, that's what you're going to be getting in the Speedworks here. And then, of course, we have the plastic plate in the midsole. And what I like is, you don't see this. They put the motto on the plate. Instead of saying, like, Hyper Fling Plate Plus Pro, they put their little motto. That's a cool touch. Yeah, like New Balance here, they don't have the motto. They have Energy Arc. That doesn't make me want to go hard. That just makes me want to read some marketing copy. But TYR put the always in front, which is a cool touch. You don't see brands putting logo or mottos on shoes very often, which I think probably comes from their gym, CrossFit background. That might be a little bit more common on that type of gear. And then, of course, we got the Valkyrie Speedworks stamped right on the inner part of the shoe right here. So I was just looking at the specs of this guy here, and one interesting thing is you've got 39.5 millimeters of foam up in the heel, which is the same stack height as the racing shoe. And you don't always get that with these shoes in the market, these plated training shoes. For example, Boston 12 is sitting at mid 30s. I believe it's 36 or 37 mid-high. The SC Trainer is the only one, I believe, that's up at that 40 millimeters out of the crop I brought earlier this morning. And Speed 4 isn't even up there either. This guy's at about 37, 38. Also, just comparing the design language of these two, the Speed 4, man, this guy is doing a lot, as the kids say. The TYR this is just a super clean look. So yeah, you're getting 39.5 millimeters of stack in the heel here, so a lot of foam. Hopefully it'll feel very protective. And then you get 33.5 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop. And I like that 6 to 8 millimeter drop range. I find it works well for a variety of runners, a variety of mechanics, foot strikes, landing in the heel, landing in the front. So that is a nice touch here. And then one thing I do have to mention about landing on these shoes. So same geometry as the racing shoe. And what I found with the racing shoe is that it worked best, and that's not saying only, but it worked best when landing up here for fast running. So landing at the forefoot, it felt amazing because you got this super aggressive rocker. Look at that thing. So that's where it felt best for fast running. But then because you have this nice regular flat geometry like a normal sneaker throughout the rest of the platform, it worked well for slower recovery running, jogging, no matter how I was running with the shoe. It didn't force me into any sort of weird mechanic. So they're keeping that setup with the Speedworks here, which I think will be nice for training, because in a training shoe, you want something that can go fast, that can go slow, that can handle recovery jogs, that can handle fast speed. And so if you are a forefoot striking runner when running fast, that's going to be a nice touch up here. All right, now heading up to the upper here, it's a very lightweight material. It almost reminds me of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 upper with this sort of mesh that you got. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this on camera, but it is a see-through type of knit material, which is cool. And then you have this crosshatch, this crisscross pattern with the white. Really clean look. Feels really lightweight. I'll throw it on the scale to see how it compares to those other plated training shoes. And then the other thing about these TYR shoes, though, is that they've designed them to have a little bit of a wider toe box. They call it the anatomical toe box. Just looking at it from the top, it honestly doesn't look that much wider than any of the other shoes, but that is what they say. Let's take a look here. Versus the Boston 12. Yeah, I guess it has less of a taper out in the front, but it's definitely not like a Topo where you're getting a gigantic chonky fit up here in the forefoot. So we'll see how it does on foot, but just know they have designed that. And then the key area though that I think is nice is the midfoot for me was nice and comfortable and a little bit wider than some of the other shoes. So might not have the widest toe box in the game. That's going to be Ultra and Topo, but you do have a nice wide midfoot here. And I am noticing they have branded the upper. They're calling it the Alpha Weave right there. So just so you guys know, this is an Alpha Weave upper. And like in the TYR Valkyrie Carbon, you can see in the middle here, that little strip, they do have this overlay or inside of the shoe. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call it, but they do have that same piece. That's a little bit easier to see in the Carbon here, but you can see right here, boom. That's going to help lock that midfoot in place. I found the lockdown, the fit of this upper really nice. Everything about this shoe felt high quality in the racing shoe, so I'm hoping for the same in the training shoe partner here. Now, around the back, a little bit of padding here. Nice structured, very structured heel counter. There's no movement whatsoever. I cannot push this down. So if you do have any issues with stability out here in the heel, this shoe should offer a good degree of support, especially compared to some of the other options. And you'll see we do have a nice little bit of a wider base with the foam out here in the back. Now, heading down to the bottom of the shoe, they have gone with a white rubber on this. This is an all white shoe. It's a pretty fire look, but I'm not sure how I feel about the white rubber as well. And this is actually one of the issues or concerns that I had in the Elite Carbon. I'm not sure how durable that rubber is going to be. And some of you guys have told me that you've seen some high wear on the rubber as well. So let's take a look at mine here. This is the left shoe sitting at about 30 to 40 miles. And there's not too much wear here. So we will have to see how this guy does once we get it to 100 miles. Full transparency, that will likely not be until the summer. Unfortunately, my mileage will be coming down as I enter my taper phase and then race the marathon in a few weeks. But we're going to be getting back up to 100 as soon as possible after that. But I'm guessing the summer is when we'll get this beautiful tier here up to 100, and then we can test the durability. But the grip was okay on the Valkyrie Elite. I'd probably put it in tier 2 or tier 3, not as good as the Puma and Adidas, not as absolutely atrocious as the Asics. So we'll test this guy with some wet too, but I mean, I don't know if I want to take this even on any wet terrain because it's just so good looking. But we will put this through some sort of a wet grip test to see how it does. All right, guys, so full PEBA foam, slightly wider fit, plastic plate, going head to head with the Speed 4 and the Boston 12. I'm excited to get some miles on this. Let us compare it on the scale to these other guys to see how it does in terms of weight, because that has been one thing we're seeing in the segment recently, particularly with the Endorphin Speed. These shoes just keep going up and 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 up in weight. All right, guys, we got the scale out here. I also brought the coffee beans that I was drinking this morning because I wanted to show you guys my favorite coffee roaster, Hatchet. They're based out in Boone, North Carolina. I always order from these guys, and we're drinking the Honduras from Juan Jose Ventura. It's the anaerobic washed. You got the notes of cantaloupe, sweet rolls, and marzipan. It's absolute fire. So let us do a little bit of a weigh-in with these guys. Left shoe of the tier. This guy is coming in at 250 grams. Okay. Not the lightest, not the heaviest. Let's see. Compared to the Boston 12, this is 270 grams. So a little bit lighter than that. Let's compare it to the Speed 4 because that's going to be the main head-to-head guy here. Speed 4 comes in at 251. Wow. So almost the exact same weight in the tier and the Speed 4. But with the tier, you're getting a little bit more cushion here. All right, SC Trainer V2. Let's throw the SC Trainer V2 on the scale. Again, SC Trainer V2 is more of a long distance shoe, a little bit heavier. This guy's coming in at, let's see if I can brighten it up for you. This guy's coming in at 290. And then Puma Deviate Nitro 2. This guy is 283. So the tier, one of the lighter ones in the segment. I think this was actually the lightest one at exactly 250 grams. Let's throw the left shoe on there, or the right shoe on here, for a little bit of a QA check. All right, moment of truth for tier with the QA check. Right shoe 255. So that is a little bit heavy for what we like to see. I like to see it between usually under 3 gram difference is great. Between 4 to 6 is okay. So, okay, not bad for a brand new brand though. So that was a 4.5 gram difference between the right and the left shoe. Honestly, I usually can't tell on foot. The Hoka Cielo X1 had a 14 gram difference between the two shoes, and I don't know. I ran 22-mile long run in it, and it was fine. But it is a good way to see, in general, how these brands approach building a running shoe. Do they put attention and care into the shoes that are leaving the factory, not just what's designed on the computer screen and sent off to the guys in Vietnam? So actually, let's see where the shoe is produced. A lot of them are Vietnam these days. Oh, Hecko in China. Okay, this one's made in China. So I'm wondering if TYR has a long-standing relationship with China because they've been a swim and gym brand, because a lot of the other brands have now moved shoe production to Vietnam. All right, 250 grams. Nice lightweight shoe, lightest shoe in the segment. These are a 10.5. All of my shoes out here, all the ones out here are a 10.5. So let's pop these on, do a little fit and feel test, and then we're going to take them for a run. All right, guys, trying on the TYR Valkyrie Speedworks. If anybody knows what Valkyrie means, I know it's some Nordic thing, but if anybody knows what Valkyrie means, let me know. Oh, by the way, we got a gusseted tongue. I forgot to say that. Nice, strong gusset. And one thing I'm noticing, I don't know if this shows up on camera, but there's 2 different shades of white. So the upper and the midsole is this off-white, and then the laces are the Pablo Escobar, that Pusha T Daytona white, if you know what I mean. All right, initial step in here, 10.5. Comfortable, man. This feels the same exact way as the Valkyrie Elite felt, which is very planted and flat. And it's not that it has the widest base versus other shoes. Let's do a little comparison here, actually. You can see. If we compare the Speed 4 and the Valkyrie here, this is a better way to do it. You can see the Valkyrie it's not that it's so much wider, it's just flat. Look at that. Completely flat through. So that gives it a really planted feel, which is kind of a cool thing. And it's a different feeling that I've gotten in a lot of running shoes. And I'm wondering if it's coming from their CrossFit brand DNA. But oh my gosh, guys, if you look at the top here, this lockdown is just so clean. Yeah, there's no weirdness. There's no gaps in the upper. Let's compare it to the Boston 12 so we can see. I think this will be a good comparison because if you look at this, the upper is flush against my entire ankle here. With the Boston 12, I'm not sure we're going to get the same exact fit here. So upper on the TYR is shaping up to be top notch. All right, guys, let's see here. Step in of the Boston 12 is actually a little bit softer, interestingly, but I do have about 280 miles on the Boston 12. So yeah, comparing it to this guy, you can see, especially around the back of the ankle, look at that gap and how loose it is around here. This is one of the issues with the Boston 12, one of its only issues, versus the TYR. You can still put the finger in, but it's not as loose. It's sitting flush against my ankle, which is cool. And then just having both of these guys on foot, that additional stack that you're getting in the TYR is noticeable. It feels a lot higher. It also feels a lot more aggressively rockered in the front. As I'm rolling through here, I can feel that additional stack. So all the way up until where this rocker starts, it almost feels like there's 40 millimeters right under the ball of my foot. So you get a lot of stack. It feels like there's a lot more cushion in the TYR than the Boston 12, which is interesting. Let's pop on the SC Trainer V2 next, because this is the most cushioned plated training shoe that I have. This is also one of the highest stack training shoes on the market. The V1 of the SC Trainer was illegal at 40. What was it? It was above 40. I think it was 43, 44. You guys will know. Put it in the comments. But wow, lacing this up so the SC Trainer V2 foam is much softer on step in. That fuel cell in this old generation of fuel cell, man, this was a great foam. I'm a little bit sad that New Balance got away from it with the EVA PEBA blend, because this was an awesome foam. So underfoot, you can feel a lot of that additional comfort in the New Balance. The New Balance is probably the most comfortable plated training shoe. And as we're thinking about that spectrum of shoes, right, the fast plated training shoes all the way on this side versus the comfortable, which would be the New Balance here. TYR is probably sitting closer over here to the fast side of the spectrum. This isn't really a shoe designed for plodding along. It's a shoe designed for some faster paced speed work. It would be interesting to see TYR come out with a nice max cushion recovery shoe, though. I'd be interested to see what they could do there. But yeah, on step in, the New Balance is a lot more comfortable. It feels more flexible up in the forefoot here, which I think is just because the foam is softer. I didn't even do the bend test here, but yeah, this is a very stiff shoe. This is actually a shoe where it feels like if I bend it, I might snap the plate because it's a plastic plate, but very stiff shoe, not flexible at all in the Valkyrie Speedworks here. And now, guys, moment of truth. Let us do a step and feel comparison, fit and feel comparison to the Speed. Oh, I have the wrong Speed 4. Hold on. All right, so I grabbed my Speed 4. I also grabbed my Speed 3, but let's do the Speed 4 first. So, SC Trainer V2, a lot more comfortable than the TYR, a lot softer underfoot. And then Speed 4 here. This has a snugger upper. So this is what I'm noticing. So the Speed 4 tapers a little bit more. You can also see, I'm not sure if you can see this on camera, but this is my pinky toe hanging off the side of the Speed 4 here. And then you can also see the knuckle joint. I don't know what this is called. You guys will know. The knuckle of my big toe here is also kind of poking out of the upper. So while the TYR doesn't immediately look as wide or feel as wide, it's just wide enough so all that weirdness going on in the Speed with stuff hanging out isn't happening in the TYR. And I did bring out the Topo Cyclone here so you can see just a little comparison here. I'm not going to put it on, but you can see it has that platypus look where it is a whole lot wider, and it also is flatter up at the front here. The TYR does have that traditional taper, but the taper doesn't happen until farther up the foot. So in terms of these two, though, TYR is definitely a lot more comfortable. Now, the Speed 4, interesting, it does feel a little bit more flexible. But again, just lacing this shoe up, man, and you guys, I know some of you love this shoe, it just feels like an awkward shoe just putting it on. And I think partially it's because of the caboose action that we got going on here. So the caboose is the little foam hanging off the back, which is supposed to add a little bit more stability. The TYR has good stability without a whole lot of caboose here, and it just feels like a more normal running shoe. It is not an awkward shoe at all. That's a nice thing about the TYR, both the Racer and this Speedworks, is that they don't feel like awkward shoes. They feel like normal shoes. So Speed 4, though, is a little bit more flexible. That's interesting. I'm wondering if the Speedworks here is going to feel like a firmer ride, because that plate was not flexible at all, and it just seems like there's a little bit more going on in the midsole of the TYR. So only the miles will tell. Now let's pop on the Speed 3. This guy has about 300 miles on it. I actually think the upper of the Speed 3 and the overall fit of this is just better. This just feels like a more comfortable, normal shoe on foot than the Speed 4. And I've said this a bunch, guys, but if you're considering the Speed 4, I would just pick up the Speed 3 on discount. Or maybe the Speedworks here, but we're going to have to get some miles in it to see. All right, I'm just going to let the laces flop because I don't want to deal with everything. But yeah, the Speed 4, or sorry, the TYR is, you got a little bit more room in the toe box. I think you get a little bit more stretch in the upper of the Speed 3, but it feels a little bit more constraining overall. And then if we're thinking about the rolling, the Speed has a much more, in general, a much more rockered profile here. So from heel to toe, it feels like there's a curve along the whole thing, versus this TYR, again, you get a little bit of curve up in the back, then very flat through the ball of the foot, and then it curves up at the end. All right, guys, so last shoe we can compare it to is the Puma Deviate Nitro 2 here. So this guy, again, is probably the most friendly for everyday miles. It also has a really nice foot, really nice fit, and a very comfortable step-in feel. This one is probably, I haven't done this where I've tried all of them on in a row like this, so the Deviate Nitro 2 is probably the second most comfortable on step-in after the New Balance. And I think if this had a better fitting upper, just a little bit more room in the toe box, this would be a really nice shoe for walking and just for everyday stuff. For if you have a narrow foot, this is a nice shoe. So I think Puma Deviate Nitro 2, you get a little bit more comfort. Well, the other thing I should have said about the Speed is it felt almost just as tall as the TYR. With the Deviate, it feels a lot lower. It feels almost half an inch lower than the TYR. So we are getting a lot more cushion in the TYR Speedworks here. Deviate is lower, a little bit more ground feel, and probably a little bit more flexible too. But we'll have to see how this does out there on the run. And actually, I'm just gonna pop this one on because the stacks are pretty similar. This is the Pro 4, one of the most comfortable racing shoes I've ever tried on, and also a great training shoe because of how friendly the ride of this is. And these actually feel pretty similar underfoot, but one of the things I'm noticing is the width of the heel in the TYR is a lot wider, so you're going to get more stability out of the TYR here. And now we're comparing a training shoe to a racing shoe, but I think the racing shoe, the TYR racing shoe, again will have more stability than the Pro here. If you look at this, it's just there's something weird going on with the back of the Saucony that I don't love. But the foam is very comfortable in the Pro, and again, this one almost feels more flexible because what they did with the rocker here and how aggressively it goes up in the heel adds a lot of rigidity because the geometry of the foam has this super aggressive curve. So it's not going to give you a lot of forefoot flexibility. You can see as I try to push my foot down, I don't get a whole lot of that. Versus in the Pro here, I can push my toe down almost flat to the ground here. So a little bit more flexibility in the Pro, a little bit less flexibility, more rigidity in the TYR Speedworks here, which should make for a nice fast ride when we're popping off the forefoot. Now let's get the Pro off and let's lace up the other TYR, do a little walk test. So I'll walk around, do a little bit of a walking test with these, but in general, these plated training shoes are not designed for normal everyday activities. If you want a hybrid shoe for the gym and for walking, I would go with a normal daily trainer instead of this, something like the Hoka Mach 6. But plan for the run this morning, I think, is going to be 12 miles. And I did 22 miles yesterday across 2 runs. So I don't know how fast we're going to get up to, but I would like to test these with some pace in there. Maybe pick up the pace at the end or throw in some strides, but get some time on feet this morning, see how these do as a distance shoe, and add some bursts of pace here and there. So on foot, these feel extremely similar to the Valkyrie Elite Carbon, the racing shoe. Nearly identical feel, and walking here, that forefoot rocker is super noticeable. The other thing that's noticeable is how flat the platform is and how flat the heel is. So you don't get much of that foam extending out of the back, which means as you're walking around here, you don't want to land right at the back of the heel. The racing shoe was pretty decent for me as a heel striker because of the stability. We'll see how these do this morning. All right, guys, I think we've done enough comparisons and talking this morning. We gotta look at that graveyard over there. It is now time to get some miles in these things. All right, boom, see what we got here. 12 miles, 7:36 pace, exactly 90 minutes. All right, so 12 miles in the books in the TYR Valkyrie Speedworks. Now I want to check my splits on this one because I wasn't looking at my watch for most of it, but average 7:30. I'm guessing I was hanging out around 7:40 to 7:30 for most of the beginning, and then I dropped down to about 7 flat for the last 4. I was planning on trying to fast finish down to marathon pace, but my legs did not have the juice today. I could have forced it, but you guys know my philosophy. Training, not straining, as the great Arthur Lydiard said. So, actually, I don't want these. I was going to pop these on, but just keep it simple. Pop on the slides, you know. But man, the number one most notable thing about these guys is the amount of cushion that you get. And I had no idea this was going to feel so cushioned. And I had no idea that they're actually going up to 40 millimeters in the heel here until I looked at the specs this morning. But it definitely rides like a 40 millimeter beast out there. Also, one thing before we go do this wrap up, I want to check this one more time because the fit felt a little snug. And I'm not sure if it's both of these. Yeah, they fit the same. So I think the last, TYR's last, is just a tiny bit snugger across the race shoe and the training shoe. But I would not go, I like how these fit, so I wouldn't go up a size, but just know it is a little bit of a snugger fit. All right. Let's go do this wrap up, guys. All right, guys, so 12 miles in the TYR Valkyrie Speedworks here. Look at this thing just glowing, glistening, gleaming in the sun. I think I'm gonna call this guy the Tony Montana because it is this pure white color. And then look at the bottom here. We actually turned the outsole gray from the white. But number one most defining feature of the Speedworks here, as I mentioned up there, is this cushion. And it is not a soft sinking in cushion. It is a pretty firm version of PEBA, and it feels awesome once you step on it and push the pace. So again, this shoe, like the TYR Valkyrie Carbon, the racing counterpart, is going to be great for bigger runners, for stronger runners, for more powerful runners, especially those landing up at the midfoot and forefoot. So first about, let's say, 6 to 8 miles of this run, I was cruising along at a normal aerobic pace. I got to check my splits. I'll probably throw up the Strava thing somewhere up here so you can see, but it did not feel great out of the box the first 2 to 4 miles. And it's not like the foam broke in through the run, but as I was speeding up, as I was landing closer to the midfoot and the forefoot, it started to feel a lot better. So I think one of the key weaknesses of the shoe is it's probably not going to feel great at slower everyday running paces. And this isn't slower as in if you run an 11-minute regular running pace versus my 8-minute regular running pace. No, I mean relative to your own paces and your own mechanics. Because for me, with this shoe starting to run faster with mechanics that were landing up at the forefoot and midfoot, that's where it started to feel better. So regardless of your pace, this is going to feel good once you start running faster. I would not get this shoe if you want a plated training shoe for everyday miles. I would look to the Puma Deviate Nitro 2 or New Balance SC Trainer 2 for that. But that's what we suspected when we took it out of the box, and I was right in thinking this is going to be closer to that Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and Adidas Boston 12 end of the plated training shoe spectrum. And there's a car passing. Let's 3, 2, 1. That's a pretty cool car. That's a 4Runner. The 4Runner is the official, or it's the unofficial official state car of North Carolina. If you know, you know. If you're from North Carolina, you know the Toyota 4Runner culture down here is absolutely crazy. I'm a Jeep guy though. And by the way, if you are a 4Runner owner or a Jeep owner or a truck owner, let me know what tires should I get. This is my graduation present to myself. I had BFGs on my last Jeep, but that Jeep crashed. Charlie got in an accident with it, and I'm like, should I do BFGs again? I don't know if they're grippy enough. So I'm considering Toyo Open Countries and Nitto Ridge Grapplers. The Nittos look a little bit too aggressive. So if you have a Jeep or a truck and you off-road, let me know out of those three, or if you have anything else I should consider. All right, back to the shoe here. Feels awesome for faster running as I picked up the pace. And the way I did this run, because I'm feeling a little bit beat up, I did 22 miles yesterday. I knew I wasn't going to be cranking a 6:10 average pace for the whole thing, but I did want to test this with some faster speed. So throughout the run, I didn't click it off on my watch every time, but I did do some pace pickups here and there. And then I fast finished the run, not super fast for my paces, but down to about a 7 flat, which is roughly around that 3-hour marathon zone. So if you are a 3-hour marathon runner, 3 to 3:30, I think this would be an awesome shoe for tempo work, for longer, prolonged marathon pace style runs where you're going to be going out there for 6 to 10 miles. This shoe felt awesome for being out there for 90 minutes, and it reminds me of the Nova Blast in that respect because, again, for the first 30 minutes of the shoe, it felt a little bit like overkill, felt like a lot of foam, felt a little bit firm, but as I started running faster, as I started spending more time on feet, the shoe really came alive. So if you want a nice protective plated training shoe, that's what you're going to be getting out of this shoe. And that's why it reminds me of the Nova Blast. Very protective shoe and also on the firmer side. Now, a big issue I had with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 and the Speed 4 was that those two shoes, particularly the Speed 3, didn't feel great for longer runs for me. Anything over about an hour and 20 minutes, the forefoot started to feel a little bit flat. And that's not just as I got the shoe up to 200, 300 miles, that was pretty much out of the box. I can report with this guy, absolutely no bottoming out feeling. The way that they've tuned this foam, and it is sourced from Arkema, same PEBA as Power Run PB, similar to what's in the Topo Cyclone, but they all tune it a little bit differently. And with this guy here, it seems that it's tuned to be a little bit firmer. So it felt very supportive, very poppy as I picked up the pace, and with 33 millimeters of foam, close to 34 millimeters of foam in the forefoot here, pretty much all the way up to where this aggressive rocker starts to curve up, you're gonna get a ton of foam here and feel very well supported, especially if you are a bigger runner. No, all good. Feel free to come through. You got the Hokas on today?
I do have Hokas on.
Which model? Those the Clifton?
Clifton.
Clifton? Yeah, those are good shoes.
When I run there, I wear the Brooks.
Okay, which ones? Ghost 14?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. They're coming out with a new Ghost this year, the 16. It has a new foam in it. It's super nice. I've been testing it.
Oh, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
Her granddaughter,
Grandbaby, yeah. All right, so the beautiful people of Mint Hill, North Carolina have passed. Back to the shoe here. So tons of support, tons of cushion, the highest stacked plated training shoe other than the SE Trainer V2. And it'll be really interesting to see as we get some of these new plated training shoes coming out this year, particularly the Mizuno, the unnamed trainer that they had with the zebra print. I think that guy's gonna be a little bit on the softer, more for relaxed running like the SE Trainer V2. So it'll be interesting to see how that competes with this, but I think this is gonna be one of the best options for bigger runners who want more support and cushion. So unfortunately, I don't have too many more long runs that I'm able to do because my marathon is in 2.5 weeks. I'm gonna do a 20 miler this weekend and then I think a 14 or 16 miler the next weekend. And then it's the marathon. So I gotta be strategic about which shoes I do long runs in. Probably not gonna be able to take this up past 16 miles until probably April or May. So I'm glad we got 90 minutes in it this morning. And I know a lot of you guys out there are probably going up to 90 minutes, 2 hours for your long run. So a little bit of a pseudo long run review with the shoe. Up to 90 minutes felt great. Started to feel better towards the end of the run. And I don't anticipate you'll have any bottoming out with the shoe. So upper, as I mentioned, little bit snug, wee bit snug up in the forefoot here. You got nice width in the toe box and the midfoot is amazing. Great lockdown, one of the best uppers in the game. It reminds me of the, let me see if I can grab this. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 upper here. They're very similar out in the back and out throughout the whole fit. So I think TYR probably spec'd this shoe against the Speed 3. So you might need to go up half a size, but I wouldn't probably do that. I like a little bit of a snugger fit in these speed shoes, so this was a good fit for me. And there's no weirdness with the laces. There was no tongue moving around. Cornering was absolutely fantastic because you have this very straight platform, again, where on the bottom here, you don't have a weird curve. It's completely straight here. It feels awesome when you're cornering, when you're turning, it feels extremely planted. And then stability out here in the back, also very good. So key downsides of the shoe are really, it does not feel great at relaxed running paces and also not the best shoe for heel strikers. I think one thing TYR could do to improve this is if they added a little bit more of a caboose off the back here and a little bit more of a curved rocker. I think that would make this shoe a little bit nicer for relaxed running paces when we might be landing back here. And also the firmness of the foam doesn't feel awesome for everyday running paces, at least for my height and my weight. Maybe if I were a little bit heavier, 20 pounds heavier, it would feel better for everyday running. But because of this geometry, it really is optimized. It's designed to be used best when you're landing somewhere up here. So this shoe is priced at $170. Let's talk value at MSRP. This goes up against Speed 4 at $170, and then Boston 12 is $160. As a new brand, it's a tough sell to pay full price for this. I think actually if you use the Subwell code, you can get 10% off, which would bring this down to $153. So at that price, this is a really good choice if you are a bigger runner who wants a plated training shoe for long runs and for faster speed work. And comparing this to the Boston 12 at that price, it's gonna be a very similar feeling shoe, except This isn't going to require break-in. I think the upper on this is a little bit better. Where the Boston 12 is likely going to take the cake is durability with the outsole, also outsole grip. Let me pull out this guy here. You can see my Boston here at 280 miles. There's barely any wear at the back of this outsole, and I scuffed my heel pretty hard. Then of course we got the Continental rubber. So I think wet weather performance is likely going to be better on the Boston 12, but out of the box fresh performance is going to be better on the tier here. There's no break-in and it feels awesome for forefoot runners. Same thing with the Boston 12. So overall, for $153 using the Supwell code, this is a really competitive choice. I want to get a lot more miles in it, but it's probably not going to be, quite honestly, until later in the spring or the summer, because my race is coming up. I don't have too many workouts yet. So overall, I'm impressed with the shoe. I have similar thoughts to when I reviewed the Carbon Elite. TYR did a really nice job at not messing anything up. They went for the best materials on the market, and they put together a shoe designed especially for a certain segment of runners that up until this point has been a little bit underserved. So a great shoe for bigger runners, for stronger runners, also for aggressive forefoot runners who want a shoe for longer distances and for speed work. And I think this is going to work a little bit better for people out there who found the Boston 12 to be maybe too firm or too clunky. There is no clunkiness with this one at all when running at faster paces. So protective, fun, and fast. It's got 3 of the qualities you want in a speed training shoe with the Supwell code down to 153. Pretty good deal. We just got to test the durability on this guy, because with these PEBA shoes, I tend to not get the greatest durability, so stay tuned for that. All right, we got a lot more first run reviews coming soon. Let me know what you want to see this compared to in the coming weeks. And one last thing I should mention, if you are looking for that Speed 2 replacement, if you are replacing the greatest running shoe of all time, I know a lot of you guys out there have 2 or 3 pairs of that thing stacked up. This would be a good choice for that, especially if you are a midfoot to forefoot runner. It has that nice bounce and pop that the Speed 2 has. It doesn't have the weirdness of the 3 and the 4, although I do think the Speed 3 is a better choice for everyday miles, for a little bit of slower, more relaxed miles. This is going to be a nicer option for fast running, similar to that Speed 2. Also, this could be a budget race shoe like that Speed 2. So if you're looking for a first race shoe for 10K, 5K, half marathon, you don't want to go full carbon plated option, that's what the TYR could be good for. All right, I think that's all I have. Any questions, drop them below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.